Yo, welcome back to another episode, guys. We took a little bit of time off there during Christmas and New Year's, and then Sean wasn't feeling too well, so we took a week off. But we are back with episode 23. Just to kind of tease what we're going to talk about today. The college football playoffs are all set. Paul is making a feature in our podcast now. Sean's dog, Paul the Pug, back there. He thinks he has a few words to say for this episode. College football playoffs are set. So we've got kind of a heavy hitter final here with Ohio State and Notre Dame. So we'll definitely dive into that and who we like. NFL Wild Card Weekend, we can recap the games that already happened and maybe talk about the games that are set to play this weekend. There's some drama with Jimmy Butler and the Heat. Us being Bulls fans, we dealt with Jimmy Butler. We know exactly what this is like. And then, of course, baseball offseason. There's some Roki Sasaki news that started to pile in this week. So we're going to dive into that and all things Chicago related. So let's get ready to roll, y'all.
Sounds great.
Glad to be back here for another episode. And before we dive into all that fun stuff, which Kevin, I think, almost previewed everything we're talking about here, got to give a shout out to North Dakota State Bison football team. Last week,
Don't know them.
last week when we were unable to record, they were winning their 10th Division One FCS National Championship. It was a entertaining game against Montana State, but North Dakota State does what they do and took home the trophy. So I know Kevin is really excited to hear that. So I had to make sure I give him a little shout out before we get started here, and had to wrap them a little bit.
We're gonna cut that out of the episode. Actually,
That's the only teaser we need. It will hundreds of thousands of people tune in for my 1 minute spiel on it. But yeah, so a lot of stuff been happening since we last recorded, and we skipped over all the college football playoffs, and we're here for the championship game, which is coming up. It's Wednesday night. We're recording this. It'll be playing the following Monday. I believe that is the 20th. So we got Ohio State and Notre Dame. Now, if you listen to our first episode, I teased I was pulling for Notre Dame here. Picked them to beat Georgia, picked them to beat Indiana, and I had them to pick them to beat Penn State too. So, I think that Ohio State probably wins this national championship game. They are probably playing the best out of any team in the college football playoff. Obviously, they're one of the last two standing, so that alone means something. But just in terms of what they've been able to put together on the field every week of the playoff, it's been really impressive. They throttled Tennessee, they throttled Oregon. They had a relatively close game against Texas, but ended up pulling away. And now they got Notre Dame, which is an interesting matchup in my opinion. Like I said, Ohio State, I think they probably win. They're a more talented team. Notre Dame's playing good football too. Marcus Freeman has them boys playing pretty well. And I feel like Notre Dame's just got something going for them this year. So while I think Ohio State is going to win that game, I've been riding with Notre Dame this whole playoff, so I'm going to keep rolling with them and put in my official prediction that Notre Dame will win the national title this year, although I don't feel too great about it.
yeah, this is as a Miami Hurricanes fan, this is like a worst nightmare championship game. A team who stole a title from you and a team who you have a rivalry with. So, listen, I picked Ohio State to win it all when the season started, and I feel like I'd be stupid to not stick with that. So I'm gonna pick Ohio State to win it this coming Monday. And honestly, I feel pretty confident in that. I mean, I think that they've been the best overall team for most of this season with they've got a couple, rough losses, one of them to Michigan, but they've just got
They
a lot
needed
of
that.
weapons. Yeah,
I
I
feel
think
like,
so. They've got a ton of weapons. They play smash mouth football. They've got two very talented backs, but I mean Notre Dame's got some good running backs of their own. So um, I think that's probably a good place to transition now that we've made our picks. I mean, who do you think's been the MVP of the playoffs so far?
yeah, I mean, obviously you got to look at the two teams that are standing alone. I think maybe if you look at from a little bit bigger of a lens, you'd put like Abdul Carter from Penn State up there. Penn State's tight end. I don't know his name off the top of my head. Had like every reception for them in that semifinal game. I think he'd be up there. But it's hard, it's a sport driven by quarterback play, and it's hard to not give it to the quarterback of Ohio State, Will Howard, who has the offense buzzing. And you even look at, when they just played Texas, I think Jeremiah Smith had one reception for maybe
Three
like
yards.
3 yards or something, and they still kind of were able to do what they wanted to do offensively. So kind of going to lean towards Will Howard there. It's the easy answer, but I feel like it's hard to um, give it to anyone else at this point. Marcus
Yeah,
Freeman can't win it. Otherwise, I'd give it to him.
I'll give an honorable mention. And the reason I think it's an honorable mention is because he's also been hurt. But Jeremiah Love, he's looked really nice. You can tell he's playing through a knee injury. He's doesn't look quite the same, but he's also been kind of a matchup nightmare for the opposing team. So he kind of helps take the pressure off of Notre Dame's offense. It seems like when they need it the most. So I'll just say honorable mention Jeremiah Love. Now, these are two names that a lot of people suspected to be talked about as MVP of the college football playoff, but like they've played that way too. So they've kind of earned that right. If you could give it to like an entire defense, I think Notre Dame's defense has looked pretty damn good this college football playoff. So they'd be another honorable mention. But I'll just say Jeremiah Love just because I think he's battled through some injuries and still looked pretty decent along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick. If it were up to me personally to hand out this award, I'd give it to that Notre Dame offensive lineman that hypes them up every game. I forget his name, but I think the first time I ever seen a video of him getting the group fired up before a game, I told you I was like, I need him to be a Bear.
Pat Coogan, bro.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he's a Palos Heights boy too. He was born and raised in Chicago, so he probably grew up with Notre Dame football. But yeah, I'm excited for the finals. I'm just hoping it's not like I don't know, like a 14-10 final or something like that. I hope it's kind of a shootout because it has all the makings for a shootout. So we'll see. We'll see what we get in the college football finals. Anything you want to add there before we make the transition to NFL?
No, I do think whatever way it ends up going, it will be a close game. Spread last I checked was Ohio State minus 9.5.
It's down to 8.
Um, I'm sure Ohio State fans are probably feeling really confident being able to go up against Notre Dame in a title game, but I have a feeling this game's going to be a lot closer than people realize.
Yeah, I think so too. And Jeremiah Smith will obviously be a big name to watch. I didn't realize this dude's got 14 touchdowns this season, which is pretty crazy given the fact that I mean, yeah, he's played a ton, but he hasn't gotten the ball a ton. So really, really nuts. I love watching Jeremiah Smith, man. He's going to be so good in the NFL. He can't go into this year's draft, but next year's draft, it's he's going to be
I don't think
insane.
he can go in next year's either.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. He's ready to go this year. That's crazy. All right. Well, let's jump over to NFL. I'm going to pull up the games here. We just had wild card weekend. I think if you look at like game by game, I mean, Texans Chargers, I don't really have a whole lot to add there. The Texans finally look like, the Texans of last year again. They won 32-12 against the Chargers. The Ravens and the Steelers, I think, honestly, I kind of expected that game to be more of a blowout than it actually was. Ravens won that game 28-14 against Pittsburgh. Maybe they're just saving their juice for later in the playoffs, and we're just like, this is just enough to get us by. We're good.
I
But
think it's hard too when you have to play the same team three times in a season,
yeah,
like they do with Pittsburgh. So
yeah,
Obviously, you're not going to be able to just blow them out every time, but definitely expected Baltimore to win that game, and they kind of did handle business pretty much from the get-go.
Derrick Henry did. I mean, that dude almost rushed for 200 yards. It's crazy. Um, we had the Bills and the Broncos. Just kind of what you expected there, 31-7 Bills. I thought Bo Nix looked pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah,
Um,
I think if you're a Broncos fan, you're probably pretty happy with the way the season played out. Tough draw getting Buffalo, but Bo Nix didn't lose them the game by any means, so good experience for him and definitely something to build on moving forward.
yep, absolutely. Packers Eagles, man, what a beautiful game. Eagles won 22-10, knocked the Packers out of the playoff. Anything
Yeah.
you want to add here?
Jordan Love had a hat trick with 3 interceptions, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he looks
It's
pretty
becoming
shitty.
it's becoming a question. Did they make the right decision by signing him long term?
They gave him a fat contract. I don't know what the buyout or like the opt outs look like, but man, he's not looking too great. Commanders Buccaneers. That was a fun game to watch. I mean, I will say going into it, I didn't really care too much about either team. Jaden Daniels is fun to watch, but like overall the game just wasn't that flashy to me. But it ended up being a fun game to watch. Commanders win 23-20 over the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Baker played well. Jaden Daniels played well for his first playoff game, and if you're a Bears fan and you were watching that and you saw the doink go in at the end of the game, you're probably like, I didn't think that was possible. So
Yeah.
a little bit of flashback seeing that, but I kind of thought that Washington would win that game. I thought that was a good matchup for them, especially for Daniels going into his first playoff game. It was up in the air. There was a chance they would draw Philadelphia. If that was the case, I think it probably would have been a much worse game
Yeah.
for Washington. But tough end of the year for Tampa Bay. But I mean, Baker keeps looking good in the playoffs, so can't always say it's on him, and they just got to figure out how they can get over the hump next year.
Yeah, I'm actually going to look at. Do you want to just talk about the Rams and the Vikings game? I'm going to look at Baker's stats for the year because I think he put together a pretty nice year again here.
He put together a really good year.
Holy shit. He put up
Yeah,
4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, which was tied for second in the NFL, 16 interceptions, which isn't great, but 41 touchdowns, you're all right. QBR of 61.7. So, yeah, I mean, really nice year for
yeah,
Baker. And the thing is like, he's also set up for success too, right? Like he's got a good offensive line. He's got plenty of weapons, especially with Bucky Irving having a hell of a rookie year. So he's set up for success, but still, nonetheless, man, really impressive stuff from Baker Mayfield in back-to-back years here.
yeah. Going to be interesting for them. Probably going to lose their offensive coordinator. How much is that going to make a difference?
Yeah.
Could lose Chris Godwin. I know he's been hurt the last couple year. I know last year for sure, and I think this year, and maybe even a little bit longer than that. So might be looking a little different offensively for them. Mike Evans, he's great. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL that no one really talks about.
Oh,
But
hands down,
he
dude.
he's only getting older, so maybe some retooling on the horizon for Tampa Bay offensively, but we'll see.
Yeah. Luckily, this should be a good draft for that. All right. Rams Vikings. Sean, I'll let you take away with this one.
Yeah, so I didn't even really watch much of the Rams Vikings game, but before the game started that night, Michaela had asked me who I thought was going to win the game, and I said, well, I think the Vikings should win, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if their quarterback kind of like shit down his own leg in the playoffs, and that's pretty much what we saw from Sam Darnold there. And towards the end of the season, he started playing some of the worst football that he did all year, and it was
Yeah.
unfortunate for the Vikings, but kind of a predictable ending for them. And what once seemed like they had a quarterback for at least the next year, maybe a little bit longer while they wait and figure out what they were going to do with JJ McCarthy. Now it looks like they're ready to hand the keys to JJ McCarthy with the way that unfolded with Sam Darnold. So
Yeah, I mean, granted, he got sacked 9 times, right? So like that doesn't help either. But dude, like it just feels like what a waste of a season for the Vikings. You know what I mean? Like you have that dominant of a year to just kind of shit the bed in the playoffs like that, and Now you're not going to have a good draft pick, and luckily they already have JJ, so they don't have to draft a quarterback. But still,
Yeah.
you dominate the
They
whole season to look like that.
they've done a good job with drafting their GMs. They got to have a good GM. But yeah, you're right. Like you having a later pick, that kind of sucks. I think if you're a Vikings fan and you ask them before the season, it could end like this, or do you just want to not even make the playoffs and have a chance at a better pick? I would guess they probably take that better pick opportunity. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this team looks next year. They're probably going to lose Brian Flores, I'm guessing. So defense maybe takes a little bit of a step back. They got some young pieces on that side of the ball, so it's not like they'll be left with nothing. But um, it'll be interesting to see how this team looks like. I mean, offensively, they're great. Weapons are great. What's JJ McCarthy going to look like? That's the next big question for them. And obviously, I feel like Aaron Jones might test the market, so they'll have to fill out another spot at running back. But um, I don't think they're going to be 14-3 again next year. But I definitely think they have an opportunity to continue being a good team moving forward. It's just a lot of it's going to depend on McCarthy. And now, he had some question marks, but now he has a question mark of his health too.
Luckily for them, it's a pretty good draft for running backs. So I feel like they could just get a running back in one of the late rounds and get away with it. But I don't know what the free agents look like in the running back market either. Yeah, it's just tough, man. If I was a Vikings fan, I'd be so frustrated because it's like you get so hyped up. You had a way better season than I'm sure you probably anticipated, unless you're just an unrealistic Vikings fan. Then it worked out how you thought. But just to kind of shit the bed like that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
So
But how about the Rams? I mean,
yeah,
the whole situation with them getting a home playoff game to having to play it in Arizona to coming out and winning 27-9. I mean, gosh, it's one of those teams that you look at, and I know they got the Eagles next, but it's hard to feel confident drawing the Rams. They got Matt Stafford, who he's aging pretty well. I know he's had some bad games over the years recently, but I mean, like he can turn it on any day or any Sunday or any Saturday. And then you got Sean McVay on the other sideline too, and their defense is just a bunch of like it's hard to call them this because you think of the NBA when you use this term, but it's like it's a bunch of role players who are just playing
oh,
well together as a unit. Jared Verse looks like a steal that they got in the draft, and yeah, I don't know. I think the Rams are one of those teams that if I had to play them, I wouldn't feel great about it, and that's Philly's next task.
dude, the Rams have won 8 of their last 10 games. Like they're playing really good ball right now. Their two
Yeah.
losses were to the Seahawks and then the final week against the Texans, which I think they just benched everybody, so that game's just whatever. But yeah, I mean Matt Stafford had a pretty decent season. He threw for just under 4,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 picks.
He
So
was
not
hurt too.
yeah, not quite like the stat stuffer like he used to be, but like he's playing really good football at a really good time for them. So, and he's just a great guy to have in the clubhouse too, right? Like Matt Stafford's just such a leader, such a good guy to have in the clubhouse. Polar opposite of a clubhouse cancer. So, let's let's dive into a clubhouse cancer. Actually, let's switch gears over to
Wait, we
NBA.
got we got to make some picks, man.
Oh, you're right. You ruined my transition, Sean. All right, let's
Well,
make let's make
listen,
some picks.
you need to stick to the outline, all right?
I got too excited to talk shit on Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we'll get there. So first game Saturday, 3:30 p.m. We got Texans at Chiefs.
I think it's Chiefs.
I saw this stat today. Patrick Mahomes has never lost a divisional round game, and he's never even thrown a pick in a divisional round game. I don't think that changes. I think Texans or not Texans. I think Chiefs roll.
Yeah, I mean, if it was the Texans of last year with another year of experience and them not being hurt like they are, then like maybe this is more of a conversation. But I think it's the Chiefs. It's 8.5 point spread too. What do we got next on deck? What's the next game?
Saturday night, Commanders at Lions.
Hmm. I mean, I think I'm taking Lions, but like the Commanders do make you think for a second.
They've had a lot of good things happen to them this year. A lot of things going their way. Um, Crazier things have happened, but I do think, and not to mention Detroit's got a lot going on with just their coordinators getting ready to leave to take head coaching jobs and stuff. So, for a team that's been incredible all year, they do have some noise going on around them, but
Yeah.
I think they still beat the Commanders.
Dude, even like their coordinators, you know what I mean? Like, Ben Johnson's talking to his offensive personnel and is like, hey, I'm thinking about going here. You want to come with me type of things. So, it's not even just him and Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, they're probably checking Zillow in Las Vegas.
Dude, yeah. I I think that's more of his agent. I don't think Ben Johnson's actually that interested in the Raiders, but
We'll
I think
get
that's
into it.
yeah.
I just had to make
Um
that joke.
Here's the part that sucks about this game, dude. Like Lions fans have wanted this for so long and deserve this and have been through some really shitty seasons. Dude, the cheapest ticket to this game is $406. It is hands down the most expensive game on the market right now. Next closest is Rams and Eagles, and you can get a ticket for half that cost. So that part kind of sucks for like those diehard Lions fans that may not be able to afford to go to this game, but hopefully they've got season tickets and they don't really have to worry about it as much. What do we
Yep.
got next?
Next, we got the Rams at Eagles on Sunday afternoon. I just hyped up the Rams quite a bit, but I think the Eagles are a really good team. I think they'll win that game.
I think so too. I mean, Saquon played against the Packers, but I think he's kind of like been just coasting the last couple weeks. He rested the week before, so I'm going to take the Eagles. I think Saquon's just going to absolutely pop off like Derrick Henry type of numbers from last week.
He is liable to do that any week. And then the last game, the most exciting one,
Yeah, this
in
is
my
hard, dude.
opinion, Ravens at Bills. I've been saying for weeks now, in an ideal world, I would love a Lions Bills Super Bowl. So I'm gonna roll with Josh Allen and the Bills here, and just hope that I get one game closer to achieving my dream.
It's it's two offensive coordinators who are getting a lot of attention right now. Again, just like the Lions.
It's, in my
It's
opinion, number one and number two for MVP
I
voting.
was gonna say it's MVP versus MVP. Um, I'm gonna take the Bills because
It's in Buffalo too.
it's in Buffalo. I think Josh Allen, like even if you take away his running game, he can still throw the ball all over the field. If you limit Lamar, you'll never stop him. But if you limit Lamar, then you're doing a little bit more damage to their quarterback there. Um, they've still got Derrick Henry, obviously, but I'm gonna say the Bills. I think the Bills also make a deep playoff run. Honestly, I think if they play the Chiefs, they'll also beat the Chiefs. So I'm gonna say
I
Buffalo.
do, I do too. And I don't know, like as good as Patrick Mahomes is, and as much as he's just owned the AFC for years, I think it's too hard to not let a guy as good as Josh Allen get one against him. You know what I'm saying? Like, Josh is too damn good and too much of a game record to not get at least one opportunity to play in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm gonna look
And
at
I
the odds
think
for
and
that.
I think you can say the same thing about Lamar too. I think he'll get a chance at some point, whether that's this year or another year too. I think Lamar will get a shot to play in the Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I was just taking a look at Josh Allen's numbers. Now this is only throwing touchdowns, but he's got 3,700 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks. I was trying to see quickly how many rushing touchdowns. He's got 12 this year. So you figure 40 touchdowns and 6 picks. Yeah, that's a pretty damn good year for Josh Allen.
Dude, look at
Um,
Lamar's numbers.
let's see. Let's take a look at Lamar. It's going to take me a second. I bet you he's probably got like 5 on Josh Allen. Let's see. Lamar's got, oh my God. Lamar's
Yeah.
got 4,100 yards, 41 throwing touchdowns, 4 picks. Let's see how many rushing touchdowns he's got. Passing, rushing. Here we go. Only 4 rushing touchdowns. That's kind of surprising. Wow. So that puts him at 45-4. Yeah, it's pretty
It's
insane, man.
nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, depending on what the Super Bowl ends up being, this could be the game of the entire playoffs. Like, this game's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be a fun one to watch. 2 offensive coordinators,
Yeah.
both are having hell of a year. So
The
I'm excited for
the
it.
the crazy thing I think of too for both of these teams, whoever does end up winning, it's like, holy crap, you just had that what's probably going to be crazy of a game, and now you got to go most likely play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
No,
So
literally.
it's like
Yeah.
that's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. AFC's got it harder than the NFC right now. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
I think we'll get an team winning the Super Bowl this year, but we'll
Yeah.
see how that shakes
Um,
out.
all right. Well, you're not going to take it from me now. We're going to talk about Jimmy Butler and the Heat drama. So, for
Hang on,
those
we
of
got one
you,
other thing to talk about.
yeah, shut the fuck up. For those of you, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't seen what's going on with Jimmy Butler, there was rumors that Jimmy Butler requested a trade, and Pat Riley shot that down. And then after a loss to the Pacers, Jimmy Butler said literally straight to the media, I want to see myself get my joy back from playing basketball. Wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here off the court, which, yeah, no shit, you live in Miami. But I want to be able to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop. I want to help a team win. I'm not doing that. And then Pat Riley and the Heat release a statement. This is later on, saying that they are listening to offers on Jimmy Butler. There's also been rumors just today, actually, that he's meeting with the Heat brass. So I don't know what these meetings, he met with Pat Riley face to face. I don't know what these meetings are to discuss, but like clearly Jimmy's not going to stay. So like, what the hell are you even talking to Pat about other than like these are the teams I'd be traded to?
Yeah, I mean, we've known Jimmy Butler for a while, being Bulls fans, so it's not surprising that he's been like this. I just don't know. I mean, like, sure, playing in Miami's fun, being able to live in that city's fun when you make millions of dollars like he does, but I mean, he's had years to try and get out. Like, the Heat have kind of been stagnant for a couple years now, and Jimmy's only getting older and older, so it's like, what's made you wait so long? But I don't know. He's always kind of got an edge to him and feel like he wants things his way. So, when stuff like this comes up, you can't be too surprised. But I feel like a lot of this stuff that's been happening with stuff that's been said publicly, stuff that's been put out there through reporters or whatever, it's not made Jimmy Butler look any better. And I think it's tanking his value, which the Heat, I'm sure they're probably like, well, if we're going to get rid of you, we got to get something decent. And that's probably hurting their chances of doing that. But it's just, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But um, obviously, this has been going on for a few weeks. He's still on the Miami Heat, but it seems like it's inevitable that he will be traded. So where do you think he's going?
I mean, unfortunately, I think the Phoenix Suns are going to be a pretty serious landing spot for Jimmy because they can trade Bradley Beal, even though there's rumors that like the Heat wouldn't take Bradley Beal back in a trade. I think they may get
No.
desperate enough to where they're just like, okay, whatever. The Suns are also struggling, so maybe they just see Jimmy Butler as a shakeup. But if I'm an NBA team, I don't even want him, dude. Like this guy has caused drama in every single clubhouse he's been in. The Bulls, the 76ers, the Heat.
Yeah.
Wasn't he on another team too? Um,
Minnesota, Philly. You said
yeah,
Philly.
yeah. So like he's caused drama on every single team he's been on. So he's not really that intriguing to me, but I know the Suns are kind of looking for some kind of spark, and they might just be like, you know what? Let's just see what Jimmy Butler's all about.
Yeah, I think that's a logical destination. I also look to the Lakers as a team that they're always trying to pull off moves like this. They're always in the rumor mill for stuff like this. Um, Kind of an out of the box guess that I have is San Antonio Spurs. They've been trying to kind of get a star around Victor Wembanyama for a few years, and this could be their shoe into to getting one and then being able to maybe keep him around for a few years after that. But I don't know if I would want Jimmy Butler being around Wembanyama too much. I just feel like that's, I don't know, like Jimmy Butler's kind of a recipe for disaster sometimes with some of the stuff he says. So I don't know if I would want my second year's potential face of the franchise, iconic NBA player learning from him. And I don't know, Chris Paul's on the Spurs too, so who knows if him and Jimmy would get along. So
Yeah.
at the same time as it's an out of the box suggestion, there's definitely reasons why it shouldn't happen too, but you never know. I don't know. If I were Miami, I would send them to like trying to think here. Oh, I would send them to
Portland.
Charlotte. Yeah, I'd send them to Charlotte. I'd be like, here you go. Have fun.
At least Charlotte's a cool city. Portland's team sucks, and the city of Portland's not that great. Or go to like I don't know Memphis, a city that's
Well,
not that fun to
why
live
would
in.
you say that? Because now we just lost all of our Portland listeners.
They know. They agree. Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't imagine many teams are inquiring right now. You might get like your usual candidates, like the Brooklyn Nets. I feel like the Nets are in on so many random ass different trades. You may get a team like Toronto, who's like, "Listen, we'll take Jimmy Butler, but here's what we need from
Mhm.
you." I don't know. We'll see. I have a hard time seeing a team that like wants to take on his baggage. So, um, let's talk about Roki Sasaki. Now, I'll be honest. I haven't read a ton about him. I have never watched any of his film. I just know he's a very coveted starting pitcher from Japan. He has finalists right now. He's met with a ton of different teams. He's trimmed down his finalists. Right now, his finalists are the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Blue Jays. What are you hearing? What are you thinking with Roki Sasaki?
It's going to be one of those three things or three teams. He's part of the international signing class, so his what he's going to make's kind of limited, and it's also there's only so many teams that can actually sign him right now that can afford him. So I'm going to guess the Padres, despite the Dodgers maybe showed their hand a little bit because they cut back on two of their international signing guys they were committed to this period. So that kind of, hey, well, now they got extra money around. I wonder what that's for, right? Um, but I've been hearing that, and granted, I don't know if it's true or not, but just what I've been hearing is that Sasaki he's a Japanese star. He's been a star for a few years. He is more of a quiet, reserved type of player. And from what I understand in these pitches and these meetings that teams have had with him lately, he really hasn't said much. And he's kind of catered towards maybe a guy that's personally or personality wise more fit for a smaller market club. So, Dodgers, that's not going to be it. Toronto, it's a different country, but that's a big, big market. And that leaves me with the Padres. Obviously, they're playing in California. It's a huge state, but San Diego is considered a small market team, and I feel like he'll like the opportunity to play there, and it'll be a little bit more appealing to him if what people are saying about him being more of a quiet, reserved guy is true. And I mean, hey, whether you're social or reserved, I mean, playing in San Diego is not a bad place to play.
Not at all, dude. And he could kind of fly under the radar too, right? Like Padres already have plenty of stars on their team, so it's not like all of the focus is going to be on him. And That was going to be my guess, only because their front office has not been shy about making big trades, big signings. So my guess is going to be the Padres without knowing really much of anything about this situation. But I know he has to decide by January 23rd. So we should have
Yeah.
an answer here within 8 days. It'll probably come before that. But yeah, I mean that's about all we had on the national front. So this is the time where we make the transition over to Chicago topics, and we can stick with baseball when we start with Chicago related topics. White Sox. So they signed the veteran utility man Josh Rojas and starting pitcher Martin Perez to 1 year deals. Now, a lot of the White Sox offseason has been depth focused, right? Like, let's just get depth on the infield. Let's get depth in the pitching department. I think Martin Perez could be actually a pretty nice signing for them. Maybe even like a trade deadline flip type of situation. But what have you been able to gather, or like what's your opinion on the way that they've attacked this offseason so far?
I'm not surprised. I mean, Chris Getz kind of mentioned like we're not going to be signing guys to long term or
Yeah.
decently big multi-year deals. Like we're not a good team. We're building towards the future. This is what it's going to be. Those are both fine signings. Rojas is maybe a little confusing because it kind of blocks some position players from playing, but at the same time too, like Rojas he's not a bad guy. Um, Perez also interesting. I think they fully intend on him working out in Chicago and being able to flip him at the trade deadline. Um, I know they signed I think it's Bobby Dahlbeck.
Yep. From Boston. Yep.
Yep, he was a former top prospect in the Red Sox system. Has not done well since he's gone to the big leagues. Um,
They traded
Primarily
for
first baseman, from what I understand. Maybe a little bit of third in the mix there too. Um, so just kind of a lot of like 1 year deals and some flyers on some guys, which is great. I mean, we're not going to be close to competing for the playoffs, but just got to hope that when guys like Colson Montgomery and others are getting ready to play in the majors, that they are committed to letting him play. And it's not like, oh, Colson Montgomery is going to sit so Josh Rojas can play for a couple games. Like, hey, I don't care that you signed Josh Rojas to a 1 year, whatever amount deal. Like, he's not the guy of the future. Let's get guys innings that matter.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like their depth chart right now on their infielders, Brooks Baldwin, Colson Montgomery, Brian Ramos, Josh Rojas, Lenine Sosa, which he just needs to go. Miguel Vargas, which he didn't pan out, and I don't think he will pan out. Andrew Vaughn. And then their outfielders, you're looking at Andrew Benintendi, paid him way too much money. Oscar Colas, I think you might see the last of him this season. Zach DeLoach, Dominic Fletcher, Luis Robert, Austin Slater, and Mike Talkman. So the White Sox starting, and then you've got Corey Lee and Matt Tice at catcher. The White Sox
Oh,
depth chart.
they signed Omar Narvaez too at
Oh,
catcher.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome back, buddy. Their depth chart is less than impressive. It's going to be another rough year, but you see a lot of depth moves this offseason for them. So
I
I
don't
don't know,
care if
man.
it's another bad year. I don't think they'll be flirting with modern records again, but like I can tolerate it if if Montgomery gets called up and he's playing a lot, and
Yeah,
Kyle Teal gets called up and he's playing a lot, or Edgar Carroll gets called up and he's playing a lot, because I actually have an interest in watching those guys, and those guys could potentially matter for what this team likes, what this team looks like when they get good, or if they're able to get good. You never know. I gotta be cautious when I say that. Um, so as long as they're, putting guys out there that matter and not, like I said, resting them for some of these stopgap fill-in guys that they signed, then whatever. Depth's not a bad thing, but you just got to make sure it continues to be depth, and it's not, Rojas getting significant amount of starts over even Miguel Vargas. Like, got to see what these guys are. We already know what Josh Rojas is. We already know what Martin Perez is, but Some of these other guys, we don't yet.
I think you'll see a lot of younger guys come up, and I think that's why they're building the roster this way, right? Like, I think we'll see Noah Schultz. I think we'll see Kyle Teal. I think we'll see Hagen Smith. That's a guy that we haven't really talked a lot
Yeah,
about.
he'll probably be up this year. I'd second half, I would guess.
I think we'll obviously see Colson Montgomery. We'll see Edgar Caro. We'll see more of Jairo Iriarte. I think we'll see somebody even like Chase Mydroth. So I think we'll get a taste of a lot of the minor league guys in the system. We've got a pretty good farm system, but we've been there before, and look how that panned out. So we have to be cautiously optimistic at this point. But I agree. I mean, I think if we could have a season where like the second half is just filled with prospects that we've been waiting to see, then cool, that could be exciting.
I don't care if they lose every game. I just want to see those guys get some time.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll be punished with another pick, right? Like if they finish with the worst record in the league, I don't think that they have to pick outside of 9, do
Nope,
they?
they're good. They can get the number one pick. It's just lottery based. That's all.
Woohoo.
And people who crunch numbers and results and stuff. If the White Sox were able to have the top pick this past draft, they actually would have ended up picking sixth. So I'm fine picking 10th, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Um, also, we're going to dive into this in a little bit, but the Bears announced that they just finished their interview with Mike McCarthy. So
Yep.
he hasn't been announced as coach yet. So I guess that's a good thing.
Well, he can't.
Um, well, everybody thought he was going to be tonight. Um, let's talk about the Blackhawks. And when I say let's, I'm going to let you take the reins here. Sean, go ahead. Give us Blackhawks talk.
That's your Blackhawks talk for this episode.
Pretty much, dude.
God, they are terrible, man. Like I didn't even really watch them that much anymore, and I'd suck it up and watch them just because I enjoy it. But it's been rough. It's been a really, really rough season. One of the positives is they recently called up Colton Dock. He's not going to be a franchise savior, but similarly with the White Sox, we're seeing some prospects get some time. So Colton Dock's had a few good games since he's been up. He's been up for a little bit now. Kind of a cool thing was he made his NHL debut at home in Chicago against the Montreal Canadiens, where his brother Kirby Dock plays. So got to make his debut against his brother, which was fun.
That's sweet.
Yeah, he's a gritty physical player. He'll be up at the net trying to knock pucks in, things like that. So he'll be
So
a
like a
breath of fresh.
Dustin Bufflin type.
He'll be a breath of fresh air for the Blackhawks here. But like I said, he's not gonna be the magic guy that saves them. Um, Another positive is Connor Bedard. He had a 9-game point streak going, which was the second longest point streak by a teenager in franchise history. That streak came to an end, so it is the second longest. He didn't tie for first with Jonathan Taves, but during that 9-game point streak, Bedard had 12 total points on 4 goals, 8 assists. So that was another positive. He looks great. He's been playing great. Just hit 100 points in the NHL. He did that. I think I saved it here. Got some good numbers for the listeners. I think I saved it. I hope I did. I did. So the amount of games it's taken a couple players to score 100 points. Connor Bedard, 112 games. Austin Matthews, 112 games. Nathan McKinnon, 143 games. Jack Hughes, 160 games. Pretty good company.
Yeah.
So now looking at goals. So looking at goals in their first 112 games. This is the same group. Austin Matthews, 52 goals. Connor Bedard, 34 goals. Nathan McKinnon, 29 goals. Jack Hughes, 21 goals. Again, being above McKinnon and Hughes for goals in your first 112 games, that's great. Obviously, he's tied with Matthews for points, but Matthews is a very, very gifted scorer. So he obviously surpassed Bedard or not surpassed because he did it before him, but you get where I'm going there. So
Yeah.
been some talk about people being upset with Bedard and how he's panned out this year, but I just think it's outrageous to really be worried about a kid who's done nothing but produced on really shitty teams. Also a kid that had a 2 week interruption during his rookie year when he was injured um, in the middle of the season there. So I think he's been great. Maybe hasn't been exactly as advertised, but definitely looks like he can be the foundation for the Blackhawks moving forward. So that's been a positive. And you know, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. This is a lot more Blackhawks talk than I thought
Yeah,
we would
yeah,
have,
you said nothing.
but kind of going in a roundabout way here. But they obviously played in the Winter Classic. They got blown out. I heard that Kyle Davidson ripped the team after that, just for their piss poor performance and the way they looked. Probably because it was a nationally televised game.
It was like six
Um,
to two was the final or something, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, they were out of it really right when it started. And it's not like they were playing a juggernaut. They were playing St. Louis, who was playing good, but there are definitely better teams this year. And maybe that lit a fire under the team for a day or two because they came back and won their next game, but they just look like shit again. And every time after they play, you see interviews, most notably with Nick Foligno, where he just sounds defeated and he's like, I'm not really sure what else we can do. And Connor Bedard sounds defeated and he's like, I don't really know what we can do. Not saying those words exactly, but just summarizing here. And that's kind of made me feel like if this continues the rest of the way, I have a feeling we might see the end of Kyle Davidson in Chicago.
That'd be interesting. I
I know.
know I know a lot of Blackhawks fans were happy with him for a while.
He has definitely done some good things. Don't get me wrong. He's definitely done some good things. He's acquired a lot of draft picks. He's made some smart trades, but I think he's in year three, I want to say. But for the team to be this shitty at this point,
Yeah.
and for the whole like losing the locker room thing, like the coach, that's already out of it. The coach is gone. You can't blame it on the coach. Well, at that point, there's only one other man you can blame. And I think if it keeps going down this path, their hands might be tied. It's going to be kind of getting restless from the fans and supporters and things like that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot for thinking that, but I kind of have a feeling maybe we're getting, and that's if they continue to look this bad, where we might be getting to the end of Kyle Davidson's term here in Chicago as a GM.
Well, dude, Chicago sports fans call for everybody's head, so I wouldn't be surprised at this rate. It's gonna. The only team that hasn't lately is the Cubs, really, when you think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
but in some positive news, there is a hot name that's going around as a potential head coaching candidate, which would be a unbelievable signing for the Blackhawks, and that is David Carl, who is the head coach of the USA World Juniors team. They just won back-to-back golds that I believe has never been done before. And he's also the head coach at the University of Denver, been there for a while. He was a very, very highly touted prospect when he was playing, but he had a health condition that caused him to retire early when he was a player at Denver. Hooked on right away as a coach and has just stuck it out since. And if you don't follow college hockey, Denver is a perennial powerhouse. They win national championships. They're a great program. And Carl obviously has shown the ability to work really well with younger players through the World Juniors, through University of Denver. And with him having that gig with World Juniors and at Denver, because the Hawks have a prospect there, he's worked directly with Hawks prospects already. I think he is a no-brainer. Whether he wants to take the job is another thing, another story, because he is in a great situation. But he also did just step down from being the head coach of the World Juniors team, which I thought was very interesting timing. So could be possibly looking at an NHL move this offseason, whether it's Chicago or not. But I think if the Blackhawks at the very least need to kick the tires and try to communicate with him and see if he would be interested in taking that job, because to be completely honest with you, I think he's the best candidate that they can hire and a candidate that they need.
and honestly, maybe that's Kyle Davidson's way of saving his own ass. You know what I mean?
And if he does that, great. Like that's perfect.
Yeah, home run hire for him.
Because I love the fact that he works so closely with young players, and that's pretty much what the Hawks Foundation is right now. So
Yeah.
There's really not a better match from what we have. Well, there are a lot better matches from what teams have to offer versus what we have to offer, but we have a good fit for what he's done lately.
Yeah, I mean Denver's just a powerhouse, dude. The amount of prospects that come through Denver is just nuts. Um, all right, well, speaking of head coach search, let's talk about the Bears. Before we dive into a head coach search, there's a couple things I came across on Twitter over the course of the last like week or two here, and these are specific to Caleb Williams. I was really impressed with the season that he put together. Now, stat sheet pretty nice, nothing that's gonna like jump out at you, but just mentally and the way he handled himself, the way he handled the locker room, the way he handled the drama, and the way he handles the media. Really, really, really impressive from Caleb Williams. Now, two things. One of them, which I didn't even realize until I read this tweet myself, Caleb Williams' final numbers inside of the red zone. There's a total of 13 numbers here, Sean, if you combine them. So
That
like 6 and 7, okay? Do you want to tell me how many touchdowns and interceptions he's had?
in the red zone,
Yeah. And it has to combine for 13.
I'm going to say he has 13 touchdowns and no picks.
Really, really impressive from Caleb Williams. He
Yeah,
has 13 touchdowns, no interceptions in the red zone. So,
I was going to say I can't remember a red zone interception by him.
yeah, dude. So like literally when your back's against the wall, you've got like 20 yards to work with and you're about to score, just to see that stat honestly was really impressive to me. I literally only liked it so I could talk about it on this podcast. So love seeing that from Caleb Williams. The other thing I love seeing, ironically, both on the same day, the Bears had the ball in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter with a chance to tie or take the lead 7 times this year. Caleb Williams put the offense in the position to score 5 of those 7 times. There was a missed field goal for Green Bay, another missed field goal for Green Bay. I obviously ended up winning one of those. No field goal attempted in Detroit, where pretty much got Matt Eberflus fired. Forced overtime versus Minnesota, and then they took the lead versus Washington and obviously lost on the Hail Mary. So a couple of things I just wanted to bring up. Caleb Williams, really impressed from what I saw from him as a rookie. Now, there's probably going to be other quarterbacks who will win Rookie of the Year over him, but really happy
Yeah, he
and
ain't winning it.
and excited for his future. But let's take the jump to let's talk about the coach search. I've got some names here. This graphic might not be updated, but some names that have been interviewed. Drew Petzing, offensive coordinator for the Cardinals, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Anthony Weaver, Vance Joseph, Mike Vrabel, which doesn't matter anymore, Thomas Brown won't matter, Todd Monken of the Ravens, Mike McCarthy just interviewed tonight, Brian Flores, Arthur Smith just interviewed today, Mike Kafka, and David Shaw, the old coach for Stanford. Where do you think they're going with this? They've got a bunch of names. They've interviewed a bunch of guys, and they're still interviewing more. What do you think's going on with this head coach search?
I think they had good intentions with wanting to talk to a lot of people because they were criticized for the way the last head coaching search went, where they were basically zeroed in on Eberflus. But I also think with that, they've kind of made themselves look a little silly this time around by talking to so many people. And it's kind of been a little bit of a joke with how the coaching search has gone. They've talked to the guys that are the top candidates across the board, which is a good thing. Haven't really heard much about it's mostly been virtual interviews. Haven't really heard much about those guys coming in for second interviews or what that's going to look like, but it's it's shaping up to be pretty interesting. I think you obviously look at Ben Johnson as the number one candidate for multiple teams here. It really seemed like the Bears kind of were going to have him fall into their laps and they were going to be able to reel him in, even if they weren't the best at providing a pitch to him or things like that, just based off what we have to offer and what he can walk into. But now it's sounding like the Raiders have a legit opportunity to get him, and it's kind of been all over the place. It really seems like the common theme here is time. Time has been a big factor in this coaching search. Obviously, if Vrabel's off the board, that was always kind of going to be the plan. There's no surprise there. He went to New England, but now these teams are, and not just the Bears, doing these virtual interviews, and then it's like, okay, where do we go next? When can we bring a guy in? Like the NFL rules is making it tough. Where, you talk to, gosh, Bears, for example, talked to Ben Johnson on Saturday. Well, we have no update with him. We don't even know if he's planning to visit in person. We don't know if it's been scheduled. Same thing goes for Aaron Glenn and all these other guys that they've done virtual interviews for. So it's like, if the NFL is making them do these virtual interviews and making this process more complicated, I think they should let these teams be able to say, like, here's our plan for you. So, for example, like we'll just stick with the theme of Ben Johnson. All right, Ben. So we're doing this virtual interview this week on this day. If you guys win or you don't, whatever, we want to bring you in for an in-person interview on this day and be able to follow a plan that goes along with who's alive, who's not in the playoffs, things like that. But it just seems like we get so much information. Hey, we're talking to this guy on this day, 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 and that's it. And it's like I don't know if we really know exactly what is going on or who prefers what or who wants to go where. It just kind of a lot of wait and see, which has been kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think at the end of the day, and maybe this is me just being more hopeful than I really should be, I think it's going to be Ben Johnson. A couple reasons. One, look at the Raiders' history with head coaches. They've gone through head coaches faster and less effective than the Bears have. And that, I mean, that's really no reason to like brag as a Bears fan, but like it's kind of a red flag for the Raiders. Couple other things here. You look at their division, okay? You've got the Chiefs, you've got the Chargers, you've got the Broncos. So let's talk about the head coaches in that division. You've got Andy Reid, you've got Harbaugh, you've got Sean Payton. You now have to coach against those guys every single year, twice a year. Now,
Yep.
let's talk about the quarterbacks in that division. You've got Pat Mahomes. You've got Bo Nix, who's looking pretty good. You've got Justin Herbert. The Raiders don't have a damn quarterback.
No, and they can't get one in the draft either.
So
Well,
for me,
I
it's
shouldn't
like,
say that. They can't get their pick of the litter in the draft.
yeah, the big name, unless they trade up. They could trade up. So for me, it's like, I honestly think and I honestly feel like this is just a chess move by Ben Johnson's agent to either get more money or get more years or whatever it may be. And he's doing a damn good job because people are buying into it. Because I think what he's telling the Bears brass is this, is like, hey, like, it's one of two things. Either, hey, he's interested and we got to kill time, so interview other candidates. So the Bears are just kind of using this as like a, hey, tell us what you would do with Caleb Williams so we can use this information to our advantage. Or he's using it the other way where he's like, yeah, he's really interested in the Raiders. It's something he's really considering. We need you guys to go to 8 years instead of 7. So can you do 8 years? So I think it's one of those two situations. And honestly, he's doing a pretty damn good job of it if that's the case. So I still think the Bears are going to end up with Ben Johnson. I think he kind of showed his cards earlier where he was like, that is one of the teams that I would consider coaching. And we know that he only is interviewing for jobs that he's actually interested in. So we'll know a lot after the Lions game this week, if in-person interviews are set up or what that looks like. So it's just kind of a wait and see type of situation right now.
Yeah, I think if the Lions win, the soonest they could interview him in person I think it's like 27. Like they gotta wait a while.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you in your thought process there. I think the Bears are going to hire Mike McCarthy. Um, Not the most sexiest name, literally,
Yeah.
that, that's out there, but they tried to interview him. Dallas blocked it. He was able to interview on Tuesday. They flew him out on Wednesday. That's today. They flew him out today on a private jet to come, which they've never done for. Maybe they did it for Ron Rivera when he came in person, but that's a new thing this year. So kind of rolling out the red carpet, acting quickly with Mike McCarthy. I think he is going to sell exactly what the Bears are looking for from I can put in structure to this organization. I'm a proven winner. I have a history of making the playoffs. I have a history of having excellent quarterback play and calling a good offense. I think the Bears already went into it being very intrigued by McCarthy, and I think he's going to sell the shit out of himself. And I'm looking at it from two different angles here as well, Kevin. I think that's a big factor in this, and I also think the waiting game is going to be a big factor in this. I don't
Yeah.
know if the Bears are going to wait to see if they can get Ben Johnson with the chance of losing out on a guy like Mike McCarthy, who very well could go to New Orleans, for example, and be the head coach there, and they could be like, "Hey, we don't care about Ben Johnson. We'll sign you right now." You know. So that's kind of the downside to the way this process is drawing out. Now, I there's more interesting guys that they could bring in over Mike McCarthy, but I wouldn't be that mad about Mike McCarthy either. And it's just kind of funny that I'm even at this point. Like we were all
Yeah.
gung ho about top candidates and things like that. And I've kind of had to take a step back and not only prepare myself for a very realistic possibility that it could be him, but also like accepting it and looking at the reasons why it would make sense. I know, like, and to play devil's advocate here, I believe there has maybe been one, if not zero, head coaches in NFL history who have won a Super Bowl as a head coach with two different franchises. Now, winning a Super Bowl is light years away of a realistic possibility in Chicago right now, but still, as a franchise, as a team, that's the end goal, right? So, if anything, history tells you like this might work, but it's probably not going to get you to where you really want to go. So, from that perspective, are you content with just being like we don't want to wait and potentially lose out on Ben Johnson, so let's go sign up for 12-5 and almost maybe a playoff appearance every year or every other year, and maybe we get lucky and we run into an opportunity to win a Super Bowl? Or do you want to say, you know what, maybe Ben Johnson is this generational coaching prospect that only comes around once in a while? Let's actually swing for the fences. Let's wait, and if we fall, at least we fall trying. So
Yeah.
really interesting dynamic. That's going to be it's tough, and I would feel much worse if the Bears waited out, missed out on Johnson, and didn't have a chance to bring on someone like Mike McCarthy too. That would really really suck. But there's also other guys out there, Joe Brady's, Todd Munkins of the world, that they could look at too. But I just feel like if you're going to go with a guy who hasn't been a head coach yet, like one of them's going to work out, there's a good chance it's going to be Ben Johnson.
I'll give you a green flag and a red flag. Green flag, he's got a great record against NFC North. He's 57-24-2. Now, a large chunk of that's against the Bears. He was 19-7 against the Bears, 20-7 against Detroit, 18-9 against Minnesota, 0-1 against Green Bay. And obviously, he coached in Green Bay for a while. But my red flag is this. He's 11-11 in the playoffs.
Better
Not
record than
terrible.
Tomlin.
Not terrible, but also not great. And Bears fans are tired of being shitty, and they're tired of mediocrity. And I feel like this is a hire of mediocrity. And yes, I hear you. You have to play a waiting game with Ben Johnson 100%, and it's scary, and you could end up in a shitty situation. But that being said, there's still a guy that I really like, Todd Monken, and dude's just also just an offensive genius. I think the reason he doesn't get as much clout as Ben Johnson does is because he's older, but Todd Monken could be a really nice coach too. So like that's a pretty solid fallback option. There's Joe Brady, of course, pretty solid fallback option. So like for me, I personally say like it's worth the waiting game, but like I also see where people are coming from with McCarthy. I have a really hard time getting excited about it because we are at a point right now where we need to shift the mentality of the franchise from like, yeah, we could settle for this to like, we don't give a fuck. We're going all out and we're going to get the best guy out there. And that's what other teams are doing. And we just don't for whatever reason. So that's why it's a little frustrating for me because it's like, hey guys, like maybe it's time we just, stop playing this whole, like, let's just find a guy that we're safe with and roll with that. And instead just be like, fuck it. We're going after Ben Johnson. And if he doesn't work out, at least we tried. So that's kind of where I'm at with the head coaching.
I don't disagree with your thought process there too. One thing I do want to mention is in the same light, there's a lot of Bears fans that are like pounding the table for trading for Mike Tomlin and being like, he's the guy that can fix the Bears. No. Mike McCarthy has a better head coaching record and a better playoff record than Mike Tomlin. So if we're going to pound the table for Mike Tomlin, then we might as well be pounding the table for Mike McCarthy. And one thing I want to point out too, which I know I mentioned to you earlier today, off the record, but I think one thing that's enticing about Mike McCarthy is Caleb Williams would actually love working with him. Just from his history, him digging deep and working with Aaron Rodgers. Caleb's the guy that's always idolized Aaron Rodgers, kind of models his game after Aaron Rodgers. And I think you have to look at that and consider that a little bit more thoroughly in this process too, because if Caleb's going to be the guy and he's going to be here long term, like you also got to make sure you're doing right by him and you're not just, well, sorry, Caleb, we tried for Ben Johnson, but here we ended up with Vance Joseph as our head coach just because that's what we were stuck with. So that's kind of something that you got to consider and think about too, which I don't know. Just, I don't know. I feel like the Bears would be more inclined to not wait, I guess.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it will probably end up being Mike McCarthy because of that. And like,
but hey, I mean, who knows too what's going on really, right? Like they could have a verbal from Ben Johnson. Like we don't know that,
Nobody knows, dude. Literally like even the beat writers, nobody knows what's going on right now.
The biggest domino that's going to fall is who the Raiders or the Bears hire. And that's when we're going to know, okay, well, whoever still got an opening, we know where that's going.
Or they just do it in the way that like Roki Sasaki did, right? Where it's like the Raiders are no longer in the running for Ben Johnson, or the Bears are no longer in the running for Mike McCarthy. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I can see that Schefter tweet worded already.
Yeah.
So it'll come out at like 6:05. I'll be rolling over looking at my phone. It'll be the first thing I see that day, and I'll be like, "You got to be kidding me."
Yeah, it's going to be something like that, I think. Let's talk about the roster. They've obviously got a lot of holes to fill. What are your priorities this offseason to kind of help flip this roster?
Trenches. Yep, offensive line, defensive line, 100%. They got 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. All of those should go on the trenches. And then they should pick some more on the trenches. And then they should sign some guys for the trenches. That is the biggest 2 priorities for the Bears, our offensive and defensive line, most notably pass rush. I know people are saying that the Bears really need to build out the interior part of the line, but I mean, if you can get a Kelvin Banks or a Will Campbell, I know Campbell can play guard, but Banks doesn't. If you can get Banks at 10, fuck it, take him. Like, who cares? We need good offensive linemen. I don't give a shit that we have Braxton Jones. He's been a part of this mess for years, and maybe he's just a good like rotation guy. But we got to. If they do anything right, they got to make sure they hit the trenches right, because boy, we'll be in for another rough one if they don't.
This needs to be what I'm going to label as a non-sexy draft in a non-sexy offseason, because defensive
Yeah.
line are not sexy to sign. Offensive line are not sexy to sign, but we need both so badly. And the same thing goes for the draft too, right? Like not even just signing guys, but drafting guys too. Throw
Yeah.
a linebacker in there, dude. You know what I mean? Like Tremaine Edmonds has not looked that great. Throw a linebacker in there. If there's a good value available in the draft, a linebacker later on, I don't care. Go after a linebacker. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think our secondary is pretty solid. We don't know what's going to happen with Brisker. So, like, you might see like a flyer on a safety late in this year's draft. But I think as far as like the roster goes and like where we need to really spend picks and money on is going to be the trenches. It has to be. Like, we were
One
so bad,
100%.
so bad on both sides of the ball this year. And
Desperately need pass rush too. Like that is a
100%.
huge. That almost might be up there with offensive line.
I
They're
mean,
like neck and neck.
dude, like Montez Sweat's just getting double teamed, and like we can't do anything about it because we don't have anybody else that can wreak havoc there. So um, that's going to help him be more productive and help guys like Gervon Dexter continue to be productive. So
Yeah.
yeah, we need to invest in the trenches. Last thing for the Bears, Poles in his end of the season presser said that certain guys are up for an extension. Now, I have one guy that comes
TJ
to mind.
Edwards.
Okay, that's not the name that I had in mind. I was just going to pull up their depth chart because it's been a while. Um,
I got a under the radar one too. I think Kevin Byard might stick around a little bit longer.
yeah, I'd like that. I was calling for that at the end of the year. TJ Edwards, I really like. He's
Yep.
probably
I
one of
think
the. He's the most well. He's the second most underrated Bears player on the roster. The first most underrated Bears player on the roster is a guy that I think should get an extension, Kyler Gordon.
yeah,
Um,
that's fairly fair.
we we needed Kyler Gordon more than we realized because when he was hurt, we looked like shit. And this dude's just an absolute baller. I think he technically plays nickel, um,
Yeah.
but
What a come up
he
for him. He looked horrible his rookie year.
Bro, he looks awesome.
Yeah.
So I would love to extend Kyler Gordon. I think you're spot on with extending TJ Edwards, and I think honestly, I think his contract would be pretty reasonable too. He might get more, like break it
He'll
down
get paid a
yearly.
good amount. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll get a pay bump. You might honestly, dude.
Keenan Allen, I don't
You
know if it would count as an
That's
extension.
literally where I was going. You might have to think about Keenan Allen because I don't know if you listened to Caleb Williams in the St. Brown podcast, but they asked the best players that you've played with, and he was quick to say Keenan Allen. He didn't say DJ Moore, which I thought was really interesting. Um, but he was quick to say Keenan Allen, and then he also said Jordan Addison. So the fact that he says Keenan Allen that quick, he might be making a push for the Bears to offer Keenan Allen maybe a 2-year deal.
I saw something on Twitter. I don't know if it was accurate or not. I always, whenever I say I see something on Twitter, I feel like I always say that after the fact. But
Yeah,
it was a quote from Keenan Allen. And supposedly he said that if he plays anywhere next year, it will be LA or Chicago. So he hasn't
yeah,
closed the door either.
yeah. One guy I'd like to see us move on from, in all honesty, I feel like he's just like really boomer bust, is Jonathan Owens. Um, he's
I think they
okay.
only got him for one more year.
Yeah, and you have Elijah Hicks who can play his position. You know what I mean? So like you've got a guy there who can be. I think he can be more productive than Jonathan Owens, but I'd like to see them move on from him. And then there's a lot of other like Matt Pryor, obviously. See you later. Coleman Shelton. See you later.
Yeah.
Like pretty much the
I
whole offensive line except for like one
in,
or two
in
guys.
an ideal world, the Bears open up week one next year with Darnell Wright as the only returning offensive lineman that's starting.
Yeah, and even like, dude, one guy I was really surprised we didn't get a lot of production out of is Gerald Everett. Like, I thought he
Oh,
was
I
going to
I
be.
saw him and Mercedes Lewis had like net negative yards this year.
Dude, yeah, he had 8 receptions for 36 yards. That's it. Like, he was he was way more productive with the Chargers. He was way more productive with
They
the
featured
Rams.
him a lot in the preseason too. I was kind of buying his stock a little bit heading into the season. I was like, he might be a weapon that they use pretty heavily.
He was a pretty good
But
yak guy for the
I mean,
Chargers.
to be fair too, like you clearly look at what happened with Cole Kmet this year, they just really didn't use tight ends much at all. So
Yeah, yeah. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling around. As far as Bears is concerned, I think that's all I had. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
no, I'll be curious, curious where we're at next time we record with this head coaching search.
I am going to trust.
With the way podcasting works, we'll post this, and
Yeah,
2 minutes later, we'll get like some sort of monumental announcement, whether it's a
literally.
verbal agreement with Ben Johnson
Yeah.
or signing Mike McCarthy. Also, do want to mention this. This did come up. The Bears are scheduled to interview Brian Flores in person on Saturday. So, unless anything changes between now and then, as of Saturday, the Bears could then officially hire a head coach.
Yeah.
That would be
I
the Rooney Rule would be satisfied.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Okay.
Yep, because it has to be two minority candidates, two in person with two in person interviews, and they both got to be outside of the organization.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, another like 3 days then. Okay. Well, depending on when this
So
podcast is posted, we'll see. We'll see how quick I post this podcast.
yeah,
Uh,
so Mike McCarthy, Sunday morning news dump.
yeah, Mike McCarthy's gonna be hired tomorrow, and I'm gonna be posting this on Saturday.
Yeah. Someone's gonna break the news because they're gonna see him at like Giordano's in Chicago with
Yeah,
like a Bears polo on, and he's gonna be like, "Oh no!"
yeah, literally.
He'll be at
Um,
Portillo's eating a big beef.
let's talk Bulls. There's really only one storyline here. The Bulls announced that they are going to retire Derrick Rose's jersey next season. Listen, if you're a Chicago person, you get it. If you're not a Chicago person, you get it. I mean, for what Derrick Rose meant to the Chicago Bulls organization, being a homegrown guy, youngest MVP in NBA history, you've got guys like LeBron, singing his praises for Derrick Rose. Just a guy I wish we could have seen in his prime longer. Deserves every bit of this. So they will officially retire his jersey next season. I don't know what you wanted to add to this, but I'm excited to tune in. I'm really excited, and I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, it's very fitting. The Bulls had everyone out for Derrick Rose night this year, only to turn around and say, "Hey, come back and fill the stands next year when we actually retire his jersey." So,
Jerry being
um,
Jerry.
yeah, so no, good for him. I thought that that was probably going to happen at some point. Always one of the biggest what ifs in sports. If he stayed healthy, who knows what would have happened? But I'm glad, no pun intended, glad he's getting his flowers. And he'll get his number up there. And I think it was Michael Reinsdorf maybe said to him, "We'll keep that number one up there until PJ becomes a Bull." And I was like, "Wow,"
Yeah.
that had me thinking. I was like, "That would be something."
Yeah, I mean PJ's too young to know like how good of a player he'll actually be, but like I know he's really into basketball and he's I
Yeah.
mean, he's got his dad's DNA, so you never know.
One other quick note on the Bulls, Casey Johnson. I saw a report from him. It was yesterday or today. Zach LaVine is prepared to stay on the Bulls this year. So sounds like as of now, might not be dealing him at the deadline, which I'm sure it takes two to tango, but that would be very unfortunate because he's healthy and he is playing great basketball.
And we could lose our first round pick. I think if it's not top 10, we lose it. So,
He also did in this report did say that it sounds like Vooch will get traded.
yeah. He
Um,
should. I mean,
and
he's having a good year too.
he's probably been the best Bulls best player this year.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Golden State's a very, very realistic like possibility that he ends up there. So
Could be a nice fit.
give and take, I guess. Keep one, get rid of the other. I think if you got rid of Zach and kept Vooch, though, that would definitely not really hurt their chances of losing that pick that much. But keeping Zach around, I mean, gosh, he could go off for 40 or 50 any night, and it's like, shoot.
Yeah. It'd be nice, honestly. They've got that kid from Indiana, Trace Jackson Davis, too. He's one of their big men. He's actually putting together a pretty nice season. So
Golden
adding
State
Vooch,
is it?
yeah,
Yeah.
adding Vooch would be nice for them.
Maybe they'll give us Steph Curry.
Oh no, it'll be Draymond.
Yeah, you're probably right.
or somebody like Buddy Hield, who's
Jerry
not having a good
Jerry
year.
always gets his man.
Yeah,
I remember back in the day reading that Jerry wanted Draymond Green in that draft, but
yeah,
Tibbs was hell bent on getting who was it? Was it Teague, Marcus Teague that
probably.
year?
That sounds about right.
Let's see. Or maybe it was Denzel Valentine.
Oh God, I forgot about that dude.
I
No,
never
because
could.
Valentine was after Draymond, I think. Because I'm pretty sure they were like, oh, he's the next Draymond.
Let's see. It was 2012 was the year Draymond was drafted.
That's crazy. Yeah, he's 34 already. Damn,
Where is
that dude has
I
just
think
made a living off of like,
it was Marcus Teague.
yeah, that's
That's
wild.
another name.
That's wild. Draymond's
Yeah.
highest points per game was 14, and that dude's made so much money. That's wild. I mean, he does a lot of, yeah. He
Yeah.
obviously is throwing up rebounds and assists, but yeah,
He's throwing up.
yeah, probably that too. All right,
Yeah.
well that's it, guys. It's first podcast back after a little bit of a break there. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for tuning in as usual, and we'll be back to regular programming. So we'll see y'all next week. You guys take care. Have a good weekend. Enjoy plenty of football this weekend and on Monday. And we'll see y'all next week.
Go Irish.